Hello and welcome to the Cabin Boy and It's Woolcast, coming to you deep from the Canadian forest.
This is Christopher.
And this is the other guy,
Jamie.
We just came back from an amazing trip to Nova Scotia.
We've been to beautiful places like Peggy's Cove and Lunenburg, and we crossed paths with hookers.
Again. We also have some great Dyers we want to show you.
And a wonderful Milliner. That's hats.
So sit back, grab your favorite drink, and we'll tell you our stories.
Like they say, I can't be fixed. 1, 2, 3, your attention's all.
Hello everyone, and welcome new viewers.
Bonjour mes amis, encore une fois, on est de retour de la Nouvelle-Écosse.
We are just back from a trip to Nova Scotia and it was absolutely beautiful.
I would say more than beautiful. It's stunningly beautiful.
Yeah, and I was doing research as one does before they go on a holiday. And
he does, I don't. I just go with the flow.
And I was looking for yarn shops. And I would say that there's probably more yarn shops in Nova Scotia than anywhere else in Canada per capita.
Really?
Oh my gosh. We only hit the tip. There were so many others that we wanted to see. Yeah. We just didn't have time. But we were also coming off of Hurricane Fiona. And so
why are you bringing up that old broad again?
Yeah, so for those of you who watched our earlier episode visiting Prince Edward Island, this was the continued vacation, and we left the island on my birthday, and
it was your birthday.
It was my birthday.
Oh my gosh! Okay.
And
yes.
we arrived in Hubbard, Nova Scotia at night with no food.
Well, the thing was, there was the dilemma leaving, which was a rigmarole getting out of the
Yes, there's lots of drama leaving.
And
yes.
we managed to leave,
yeah.
And knowing that we had a warm, lit up place with electricity and so forth we were reassured. We didn't know what to expect, and that's why we were a little late in getting there.
Yes.
And we did get there at night, but we thought, okay, we'll just get there, we'll unload, we'll go find a nice place to have a nice birthday dinner. And that would happen.
I will say, let's start with the positives.
Well, there was a little grocery store.
Yeah, there's a little grocery store.
We
picked up a sandwich, thank goodness.
Well, not exactly. We picked up a couple of, we thought we would get some breakfast foods.
Oh, yes.
A little ham, a little egg, a little bread, this, that, and butter.
And as a contingency plan, we thought, well, we'll get a couple of sandwiches or something in case the restaurants weren't open.
No, we did. No.
Isn't that how it happened?
No.
This is what happened in my mind.
The plan was, oh my God.
Did you have a plan for my birthday?
We were going to find a wonderful dinner on the oceanfront or in the little town or something quaint, anything just nice, quiet dinner.
Yeah.
And when we Googled places and looked for places, there wasn't anything open because we're in a tiny little. Is nothing in the town. There's not a whole lot.
Well, there was that, and there was also the fact that no one had electricity, or a lot of people didn't have electricity, or they got electricity.
This is true. So there wasn't anything. There was nowhere to go, and now it's nighttime, and so we had dinner in our beautiful new setting, which we'll talk about, but. It had a ham sandwich. Happy birthday. We had some wonderful wine, though.
Yes. Yeah, we had some great wine, and I think we had cheese as well. But we got rented a place on Airbnb, and the picture was nice, but when we got there, it was drop dead gorgeous. It was probably one of the nicest places I've ever seen in my life.
It was breathtaking.
So spending my birthday in that place was incredible. I didn't want to leave. It was so beautiful. Mm-hmm. It was an old, I was going to say farmers, old fisherman's shop, basically, where he kept supplies.
Like a shack. Right?
And it was in a bay, and it was redone as a 2-story home right on...
Well, I wouldn't call it a home. It was a cottage.
Oh, okay, yeah. A 2-story cottage right in a bay on the water. It was stunning.
Yes. And, come to think of it, did we went back into town to get that stuff because we arrived, it was daylight because we saw the beautiful property, and then we went in, we ventured back to town to go get a bit of food and whatever, and then planning to just get some foods and supplies and then head out to dinner. So stunning. And there was that waterfall just here to the right. There's a loud, beautiful waterfall just there.
Yep.
And a very private bay. Right next door was another fisherman's shack, which is still used just as a fisherman's shack. They just keep, they keep their fishing gear and all kinds of boat stuff in there. And that's where, let's say they go out for the day fishing, they can come back there, clean fish, that sort of thing. So this one had been made into a little cottage. It's like an A-frame with a beautiful deck over the water, and a quiet little bay. Stunning, breathtaking.
Yeah, and we'll definitely put a link to this because it's worth checking out if you're going to Nova Scotia in the Hubbard area. It is one of the most beautiful places I've ever stayed.
It was just stunning. So quaint with the bed up in the loft, the second story. Yeah. And the little second story had where we sat with a sofa and a little dining area, kitchen downstairs, and it was all newly renovated, made into this little rental property. It was absolutely stunning.
And then you didn't mention the castle.
There was a castle, which we weren't going to mention. There's a castle across the way, which we're like, that's strange. There's a whole story behind that castle.
There's a castle, a waterfall, and we're in a bay. It was so perfect. It was just picture perfect. I didn't even want to leave the next day, but we had so much to see that.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to stay there. It was so.
And the morning, when we woke up in the morning, it was absolutely. Remember the mist? It's just like something out of a painting.
Yeah.
There was one little fishing boat or a little boat just there. Not docked, what do you call it when it's just anchored there in the little harbor?
Yes.
And the mist coming across, there's that little island over there. So the trees, the mist, oh my gosh, it was picture perfect and so calm. And we were so happy to just feel, because it had been a stressful journey.
A little bit.
A little bit nervous.
And one of us went swimming, or attempted to go swimming.
You did go in. You went
Yes.
in. He went in. I'm not.
It was cold.
It was cold because it's the ocean.
There's definitely shrinkage happening.
It is the ocean.
It's
the Gulf of St. Lawrence, but it's the Atlantic Ocean goes into the Gulf of St. Lawrence, into the bay, into that little inlet. It's cold.
Yeah.
And I was also that waterfall coming over beside the next little fisherman's shack. The water's a little bit turbulent there, and I didn't like that idea because I don't swim a whole lot, and so. But it was made for swimming because there's a little ladder going down into the water. Yeah. So off the deck is just a little ladder, no gate or anything. We thought if children were here, that wouldn't be the great thing. But you went down into the water and had a little dip.
Yeah, a little dip.
And then what did we do?
Key on the word little. It's cold.
So this is how we began our Nova Scotia first day.
So Jamie, I know at least when we go on vacation and I like to plan things and research things, you like to look at the history piece of it. So what historical facts can you share with us about Nova Scotia?
Okay, so Nova Scotia, well, this will be a good lead into, what's to come in our episode, in our journey.
Excellent.
Over the next few days. So Nova Scotia, first off, I want to say that obviously in North America, it would have been inhabited by our First Nations peoples for thousands of years prior to any European discoveries or settlements and before the arrival of any Europeans. Now, we can't mention Nova Scotia without mentioning Samuel de Champlain. Now, we mentioned Samuel de Champlain before because he's better known as, settling a French colony in Quebec City on the shores of the St. Lawrence. But that came afterwards. This came first. What people may not know is that he spent 3 years in Acadia. Now, Acadia is the area that would have encompassed at the time New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Nova Scotia. And the French settlement, the French Acadians would have settled that area. So if you think you're coming across the ocean, the Atlantic, you enter into the St. Lawrence, which is the entryway into the central Canada, let's say today.
Yeah.
Well, before getting to Quebec City, you would have hit probably Newfoundland and then the East Coast provinces. So he made his way in 1604, 3 ships going on this excursion into the New World, looking for places along the coast. So he made his way in 1605. He established a settlement at Port Royal, and he was a meticulous cartographer. Is that what you call it? So he was very disciplined at drawing and establishing maps and destinations and locations. So that included the Bay of Fundy. So one of the very first maps, like 1607, it was published, but during those journeys, he's looking for somewhere that would be a great place to settle. He made friends with the local Micmacs who helped him along the way and said, hey, this would be a really great area. So this is Port Royal is Annapolis Royal today, which is the Annapolis Valley.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, exactly. So what I'd like to mention as well is that area was always very, very well known, well into the 20th and 21st centuries for fisheries. So the cod fishing industry. So when the Europeans got wind of the riches of the fishing industry there, it brought in a whole influx of the British came along and other Europeans because of the incredible fishing industry in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. So this is now in the this is into the 1700s. So Port Royal now, that settlement is established, and it was one of the very first European settlements in all of North America. They mentioned north of Florida, but was Florida back then? I don't know. But basically the first established colony in North America. And this, as I mentioned, this was 3 years prior to following his trips to Quebec City in 1607. And I'm also going to mention that, you know, they're still known today for their fishing industry, but also by the time the 1800s came around, then we have by the mid 1800s, there's a British colony. It becomes a British colonial government. And as we know in our Canadian history, during the time of Champlain's settlement, the ongoing rivalry between the British and the French lasted for about 150 years. So it included, you know, what the expulsion of the French Acadians at the time when they wanted to take over the area, which is, you know, a historic time. A lot of Canadian history between the French and the British. And also, if you mention the American Revolution at the time, which is now, this was in the late 1700s. Late 1700s, the American Revolution, and there's an influx of immigrants. The loyalists, 35,000 loyalists who were loyal to the British throne with all of the battles between the colonies, the British colonies in New England. They fled that area and established here in Nova Scotia. And they made up 2/3 of the population at the time. So following that, let's just jump ahead a bit now into the 1840s. And here we have the colonial government, British colonial government, that takes over. But what follows that soon afterwards? Well, by 1867, it's Canadian Confederation, Canada as we know it. So you had New Brunswick as a colony who wanted to join with Upper Canada and Lower Canada, which would have been Ontario and Quebec. Now, Quebec got wind of it later. It was going to be just Upper Canada and Nova Scotia. It was held in Nova Scotia, Halifax. But PEI, they had the Charlottetown Conference, they met in PEI, all these political leaders.
And you covered that in the last episode.
I did. We mentioned that. We mentioned that in the last episode with PEI. But they also had meetings in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and also a meeting in Quebec, because Quebec got wind of it. They said, hey, we might want to join this Confederation business. So Upper Canada, Lower Canada, and the colony of New Brunswick formed the Confederation of Canada. PEI didn't join the Confederation until 1873, and Newfoundland didn't join until 1949.
Yeah, that's great.
So what the riches of Nova Scotia during that time, during that Confederation period and following, was all about the forestry industry, the fisheries, and shipbuilding. And today, Nova Scotia is still a destination for beautiful, beautiful landscapes, history, places like Cape Breton Island and Lunenburg and
Peggy's
Halifax and Peggy's Cove,
Yeah.
and the Annapolis Valley included.
Yep. Excellent. That's great.
And we're going to see some of those places because we made it to a few of those
We
places.
did. We had.
And the Bay of Fundy, which has the largest tides. And I mentioned he did the map of Bay of Fundy
That was incredible.
in the 1607.
Yeah.
And the Bay of Fundy is they are all world-class like destinations.
Yeah. So the first day we woke up and
Did we wake up?
we did in our beautiful setting.
We had a good sleep.
You could hear the waterfall. It was absolutely stunning. And we decided to go to the Rug Museum.
The Rug Museum.
Yes. And the Rug Museum was in the same town we were
But
staying.
what kind of
pretty
rug
much.
museum? Not just any rug museum.
It was the Rug Hookers Museum.
Hooking.
The
Yes.
Yes.
Hooked
And
rugs.
we got there before it even opened. And
We
because
did.
We weren't sure it was going to be open because the power was out in a lot of places.
And wasn't it just by... That's somewhere we thought about going, but wasn't it just by coincidence that was just around the bend? Because when we were coming and driving, there was the sign, there was a fork
Yes.
in the road, and
Yeah.
it said Rug Hooking Museum,
Yeah.
but we didn't know it was so just there. And off we went this way, and we thought, we're going there.
It's the Rug Hooking Museum of North America.
Of
And-
North America.
And so the title had expectations pretty high. And it delivered. It was so beautiful.
It was unbelievable. You know, and it's really... I mean, the tiny little town, it's really in the middle of nowhere, it seems. But that should be a destination. That needs to be on the map for anybody headed anywhere in that area. You need to go there because the history and the beautiful artwork that's rug hooking. And it's also, it's just an historic sort of art form that goes back, like, so far back in history. And they have unique patterns and characteristics about their artwork.
Yep, and it was fantastic. You walk into the place, and there's a bunch of rugs for sale, and so you could spend an hour easily just looking through all the rugs, and then you open it up, and you get into the museum, and it was beautiful, and it's like almost like an art gallery.
Well, it absolutely is like an art
the
gallery.
pieces are stunning.
They're not on
absolutely
the floor;
beautiful.
they're on the walls.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. Some of them behind glass. They also had modern art as well, which I thought was fantastic. It was so great.
And they had a lot of equipment and a lot of the old anything you'd expect to do with rug hooking in that museum. But it was the actual rugs themselves, which are works of art, absolutely stunning. I was amazed the size of it because then they mentioned like, oh, you enter this one great big room, and they said, oh, just so you know, go off to this way and that way.
Yeah.
Then you entered another huge room and another one, and it was just stunning. We spent way more time there than we thought because every one of those was a work of art.
So we had a great time there. I highly recommend visiting that if you're in the area. And then we went off to Peggy's Cove, and the weather was not great. However, I loved
rainy.
it.
Well, we had it
was rainy, but it was
beautiful weather.
It was soft rain, and it was really nice.
Yeah, but it was we had some beautiful sunny weather for the driving, which was great. That was one day. I think that's the only day I can remember that we were out in the rain. But we wanted to make the most of it, and we were going to go to Peggy's Cove.
Yep. It's absolutely stunning. It's just it's again that's a place that exceeds the its reputation as well. It's just beautiful, and it's full of artisanal shops as well.
Yeah, and everybody knows Peggy's. I think people who, if you mention Nova Scotia, it's Peggy's Cove. It's one of those tourist destinations, but for a reason.
Yeah.
There's the lighthouse. There's the ocean. The ocean is treacherous. It's very treacherous. I'm not a big water person. Surprise. And so, there are danger signs everywhere because you don't want to go anywhere near the. Well, you can't go anywhere near the rocks. They're very rounded off, or like you would roll down into. And I mean
People fall in. Tourists fall in.
I've been to the ocean before. I've been on the ocean, but it just seems this outcropping of rock where the lighthouse is. The movement of the waves is gigantic. The waves are huge. That's crashing up against the rocks, and so they mentioned, you don't go and just the view is stunning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And we were on our way to Halifax.
We were.
And so we made it to Halifax. We went to the museum, the ship museum.
Yes, we did.
And then after that, we went to a great bookshop. And you picked up a book.
I did pick up a book. It's right here. Because there's a connection to the rug hooking museum. Because it's funny because we do have this from the Hooked Rug Museum of North America. And right here at the bottom, it has one of the images from Maud Lewis. And Maud Lewis, I'm sure we mentioned her before.
Yes.
Because we mentioned her in the last episode. Because Maud Lewis, folk art, probably the best, I would say the best, she's definitely one of the best renowned folk artists because of her beautiful, colorful images. And they also, once they made that Hollywood movie about Maud Lewis, she became everything just exploded.
Well, and the price of her paintings went up even higher.
So I picked up this book that just happens to be paintings of Maud Lewis. And anywhere I open it, you're going to recognize some of these images, for example. And we'll put a few more up because they're just incredible. But what was incredible about the museum, do you remember there was that glass encase, what do you call it, like a glass display cabinet?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at those. Here were 5 Maud Lewis paintings. They're only about this big. But they were some of the rarer, earlier paintings of hers, which someone who had been in the area and picked them up at the time, in the day, picked them up, and they were, because people would come from all over, especially the northern states, upstate New York and Maine, and they'd come over because they had heard about her. She was selling these paintings on the side of the road, and she'd just paint, and people got wind of it, and somebody who was very interested from New York thought, wow, these are very unique and incredible, and he started promoting her, and next thing you know, people came in droves to get her paintings, but she started just whipping them out. But the earlier ones apparently are more colorful and what have you. So there were 5 paintings sitting in the Rug Hooking Museum. And we also came across someone, we mentioned it the last time, with their paintings. There were some just over here in Prince Edward County where we live. Just prior to COVID, we were at one of the museums, one of the art galleries. And they had 2-3 of her paintings. They were selling for about $2,800, I think $3,400, maybe $4,000. There was one for $4,200.
They were that inexpensive?
Yes, they were. I'm almost sure. Because I saw them and I thought, well, that's not too expensive. But they went up so much more after that. They weren't like 40. I'm not getting my numbers mixed up, I'm almost sure. But they weren't like 40,000 or anything like that.
But they are now.
Well, of course they are now.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at.
Oh.
Because one of them sold for $300,000 or $350,000. Somebody wanted this one earlier painting that he just absolutely loved. Maybe it's a one-off but when someone buys something for over $300,000, when just a few years prior was selling for just several thousand, that's incredible. So I thought that was a fascinating story because those 5 paintings, there's probably a couple of $1 million worth of those five little paintings that were just donated to this little Rug Hooking Museum.
So we didn't have a lot of time to spend in Halifax. We just
moving on. I love my book. Thanks, Maud Lewis.
No, it's a great book. But we were heading back because we didn't want to get back we didn't want it to be too late because we had big plans the next day.
Did we?
Yes.
So what did we mean? What do you mean?
So the next day we were headed to Lunenburg, but before we got to Lunenburg, there was a couple places I wanted to stop, and one of them was Woolworks. And I'm so glad we stopped at Woolworks.
Not Woolworths.
No, not Woolworths.
That's different.
Yes, that's different.
That's like the 5 and
That
10.
doesn't exist anymore. Woolworks is
I saw Woolworths in Mexico once. Okay, that was a few years back. Are there any Woolworths anywhere? Anyway, we're not talking about that.
No, we're going to talk all about Heidi.
Woolworks.
Yeah, and Heidi. Heidi owns this shop. It's a dye studio, and she is incredible. We have an interview with her as well. We're in Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia, and right in front of Heidi Wolfrat's Woolworks studio. And I'm really excited to get in and take a look. So let's go. Hello, Heidi. How are you? Oh, jeez.
Best story.
I'm Christopher.
So good to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And this is Amy.
Hello.
And who do we have here?
That's Dorothy Beatrice.
Beautiful. This place is gorgeous. It's just popping with color. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you. Yeah, colors everything.
So can you tell me a little bit about the store?
Yeah, this is the third incarnation, I guess, of what I've been doing for the last 20 some odd years. So I started in animal science. That was my path, and I wanted to raise a little group of animals in my own way, so to speak. So I had a group of Angora rabbits. That's how I started spinning, and we kept them in a really old school European setup. So they were all running loose. All the females were together, and anybody born together stayed together.
Yes.
The males, of course, we separated out, but they again had their own little play gym and whatnot. So I started in fiber from the animal side of things. We had a flock of sheep that was no kill, no sell.
What type of sheep did you have?
I had Jacobs. And,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I had Lincoln, Romney.
Oh, nice.
Crosses and some Shetland crosses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a dream for a spinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's really nice. And myself and all of the gang that surrounded the shop, we knew them all, for years.
Oh, very nice.
They had their names, and they had their babies that stayed with them, and so.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah, so that was in New Brunswick, and when the very last of my sheep passed on, it wasn't long before we just sort of started feeling out of place in the space, and we just decided to, have a little change, and so we ended up here in Mahone Bay.
Wow.
So they've been the impetus for everything, really, the animal end of things, but that's why we moved off of the farm. We were sort of committed to look after them for their lifetime.
Sure.
And so we did the shearing and all of that stuff ourselves to make sure that they were comfortable, and that time span wasn't feasible, so we decided to leave that as it was, that chapter, and we started here.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So, yeah.
That takes a lot of courage to do that as well, I think.
Well, adventure, change, it's not a bad thing, so.
And I see 2 dogs. Do you have any other pets?
Yeah, we have a couple of rescued guinea pigs that we look after. There's a really nice rescue here outside of Halifax, and that's our little farm now.
Awesome. Would you mind taking us through your store and just telling us what you have?
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to.
I love all this color. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
just makes you happy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so what we've needed is something not serious and just light and cheerful, and
fantastic.
It's been so important over the last couple of years.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. Where should we start?
Well, my production work is hand dyeing, so that's what I do in volume.
Yep.
So the yarns that are here, with the exception of one, which is Briggs and Little, something near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
They sit in our shop, have a place of honor in our shop, but the rest is dyed here. And outside of that, I spend a little bit of time writing patterns, kind of supporting the yarn. And I like to keep it really sort of cottage industry in-house,
Sure.
know. And then separately, as a kind of I almost feel like it's my side hustle, as I try and work an art practice into my schedule. So the finished pieces, which are wool related, there's rugs here today, but that's sort of something that I like to do to sort of keep inspired.
Wow, that's great. So
So-
are these the rugs you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
And the fabric came along at one point. I was feeling a little, like I needed a little injection of some other avenue to a different way of looking at things. So
Yep.
I took a City and Guilds program out of Britain, and I worked with cloth. And so through that, I started bringing in a little bit of cloth. And then when I came here to Mahone Bay, the quilting community is really, really strong. So we just focus on 2 designers, and we just keep their collections really strong, and that's all we do. Just a tiny little
Oh, great.
niche, yeah. So we have Cape Facet and Tula Pink in fabric.
Yeah, definitely
And
feels
then-
like Cape Facet in here.
Yeah. Well, who cannot adore?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Oh my gosh, look at this.
Yeah, so we
Jeez.
run a pretty good range of weights and textures and so on. I weave, but I'm not a weaver, so I do like to have extra textures around, and I can appreciate that. And
Your cakes are beautiful. My
thank
gosh,
you.
they're gorgeous.
that's something new to us, actually. We just started that, dyed that for this year's market. So we always do just small runs to test and, see how the product behaves and so on.
How do you choose your fiber?
Oh, that's a good question. In the past couple of years, some of it, to be honest, has been availability.
Yes,
You know?
absolutely.
But
Yeah.
and I have to say too, I need to respond to the market, and so I often am finding that I'm selecting fibers that people are familiar with, that they're asking for, that
Sure.
that they've come to know,
Yeah.
which might not necessarily be what my heart's desire,
Sure.
because I love rustic yarns and so on and so forth, and I can handle the maybe a little more abrasive fibers.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so it's a whole combination of what I really love and what the market really loves,
Sure.
and what's available.
Yep. Yep. I've noticed, just my observation being out here for a couple of weeks now, that people are much more attracted to the rustic than if you say in Ontario. Like it seems like there's much more availability here of rustic yarns than there is in Ontario.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, I know the artisan market is really, really strong. And artists in general are they're everywhere.
Yes.
And it's just beautiful. Everything from fiber to music, writing, and
Yeah.
I think part of that, lends itself to going back to a more sort of rudimentary
Sure.
material.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I also, when I was researching before we arrived here, there seems to be more yarn shops per capita than anywhere else in Canada.
Oh, really?
It's
That's
incredible.
so interesting.
It's-
Yeah.
I can't believe
and
it.
I have to say, with the animals over all those years,
Yeah.
and and just running the business in general, I'm a bit out of touch, and so it's always interesting to hear
Sure.
what's happening elsewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. And so you've got lots of yarn here, my gosh. So what is your big seller on the yarn side? What do you sell most of?
Oh, well, this time of year, of course, it's the sweater quantities. Everybody's
Yes.
getting ready to do,
Yeah.
just settle in and do big projects. Through the summer, we do a ton of soft yarn.
Depends on
Shawls and small accessories are always popular. I think that's something that will always be. Yeah, and I think, I think it's a bit seasonal.
Sure.
Yeah. Right now I am seeing a lot of sweater quantities starting to move again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any of your spinning here? Dyed spinning?
My
or-
hand spinning, I don't spin for the floor anymore.
Okay.
It's just a time
Sure.
consideration.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I spin for the rugs, so that's
Okay.
how I sort of keep my hand in. And spinning was kind of my first love, and I like to sort of make sure that it's incorporated. And rug hooking in general is
Yeah.
very, very strong in this region.
Yes, it is.
But most hookers are using a wool fabric cut into strips.
Yeah.
And I hook with yarn because, again, I spun first, and that's what feels comfortable.
Yeah.
So that's how I keep spinning in the mix.
Sure.
Yeah.
And did you say you design patterns as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that one of your designs right there?
Yeah. This is just a simple cowl.
It's beautiful.
Thank
It's
you.
absolutely beautiful.
I like to put things together that have listen to me. I'm no fancy expert designer. I just sort of, again, do what people seem to need.
Sure.
And what I've noticed over the years that people do well with or enjoy, I should say.
Yep.
And so a lot of people are just, say, starting with lace or, moving on past their first 24 scarves,
Yep.
And so I like to do things that are really simple with just that little bit of interest that keeps you knitting and, just makes the project not feel like it's taken you 24 years
Yes.
to finish. So
Do you have any
yeah.
other designs in here?
Yeah. So this is a really good example. Just TV knitting all the way down, and then that little hint of interest at the end, so that when you're doing all those long rows, it keeps you awake, right?
Yes. So what is this? What is this fiber? This is really nice.
Oh, this is a merino with cashmere. Yeah, it's a merino blend.
That is
And
gorgeous.
of course a mohair and tailing off with it's top down, right? So you finish with these long rows that keeps you awake a little bit. And, because sometimes when you're doing top down on a wrap, those last rows, oh my gosh, a whole night
wrap.
and you've done 2 rows.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Really nice.
so it's kind of fun. I can dye for those, and just the little pieces that are around here are things that I've put together.
The lace work up there.
Yeah. So I have a newsletter, and I've set that up as kind of the structure for myself, to schedule myself.
Yeah.
So because I'm the boss, and it's easy to kind of goof off and end
Sure.
up in
Yes.
another world doing something really fun, but
Yes.
maybe not relevant.
Yeah.
So normally when I put out a pattern, I gift it to my newsletter, Community First, and it keeps me on track. So for the summer, I was writing about a pattern a month, but just simple things that have a little touch of interest and
Yep.
nothing mind-bending, or I'm just doing it to, again, play with the yarns that we're dyeing.
Very nice. So does this yarn make that shawl? Is that the kit for this?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes it's easier when and particularly if you're traveling and you're, have lots and lots
That's
of
gorgeous.
things going on.
My gosh.
Sometimes.
So is this all of your dyeing right here? Is it?
Yeah, it is. I used to run a retail space that was much bigger. I
Yep.
had a bigger floor space, and I ran a lot of commercial yarns. And then when we came here to Mahone Bay, I wanted to have a very unique stamp, because I didn't want to interrupt anything that was already happening here.
Yeah.
Or infringe on anything that was already happening here, for one thing.
Sure.
But also it was a new adventure, and I just thought, okay, well, it's time to just have one label, and that's
awesome.
what we do.
Your
Yeah.
colors are great,
Thank you.
and they look similar to your fabric. The color choices, so it's really nice. Yeah. Very nice. How do you choose colors? What inspires you?
I am really inspired by season,
Mm-hmm.
and my palette has changed since the move.
yeah?
Yeah, it's become much more coastal. I think
Oh,
it's
that's
just,
interesting.
Yeah, it's inevitable, and I've had friends come down and visit who were very much a part of my store in New Brunswick, and have said, "Oh yeah, you're getting
Oh, that's
seaside
fun.
now," and I think it's fine. I sort of
growing.
I let that
Yeah.
happen as it happens. It's natural, but I've always been influenced by the season.
Sure.
It's kind of tricky because you need to dye Christmas yarn
That's right.
outside
Early.
of the
Yes.
season, and
Yep.
so
Yeah,
sometimes
that's interesting.
that's a little. You have to kind of get in that headspace, but yeah, I don't know. Last year I really concentrated on some masculine yarns because I find it's hard to knit something for a man.
So what's a masculine yarn from your perspective?
Well, I like earthy,
Yep.
and so that's easy for me, but not everybody does. So
Yeah.
I have to make sure I do what I call my parrot tropical yarns.
Sure. Yes. Yep.
And so I think the masculine yarns, what I do is I take a particular hue
Mm-hmm.
and I then just glaze that over and over again. So you have lots and lots of different colors coming up through.
Sure.
Almost like a faux heathered look.
Yep.
And I keep them a little more semi-solid than it's just strongly variegated. I mean, it's easy to do stuff for children,
Yes.
for women,
Yep.
but I like something for men that's not boring.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
beautiful,
Sure.
but strong
Yep.
and of the earth.
Yep.
That sounds really airy-fairy.
No, but that's great.
That's kind of my
Yeah.
sensibility when I'm going in there. So what I do is glaze.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to reach you, how would they reach you?
I'm all over Instagram. No, I'm not all over Instagram. Oh my gosh. We had a really good Instagram page and it just disappeared. So I lost everybody. I lost track of everybody. You can find me again. I pouted for about a month and then started something new. It's brand new. It's called Heidi Wolfrat Studio.
Yes.
That's,
Yep. It is because I
Is
checked
it?
it
Okay,
last
thank
night.
you. Okay. Yeah. And then we have a Facebook page that is still up and running.
Awesome.
And of course,
And you have a website?
my website. You can find me at HeidiWolfrat.com. You can find me at, HeidiWolfratStudio.com or thewoolworks.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you, Jamie, for filming.
Oh, I'm so touched that you came to
Thanks.
visit.
Oh, this was great.
It's so nice.
It's wonderful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You had chosen, like you said, to research, so that was a destination. We knew we wanted to find her, and where we were kind of centrally located in the
Yes.
cupboard, and so we knew we'd just drive this way, a little bit that way, a little bit this way, a little bit north, a little bit more that way. I don't know with my directions when I was driving because I wasn't driving. Oh, we made our way that way.
When you were behind the camera and you were in her shop, how did you feel?
Colors.
And so
And bright and beautiful.
Is that how you
It was
describe
like,
it?
yeah, it was
Yeah.
like walking into almost like an art gallery because of
Yeah.
the white walls, cathedral ceilings, bright big windows, and it was just color. And she also had fabric, so I just remember walking in and just saw beautiful colors everywhere, and everything was just so pristine and
Yeah.
beautifully displayed. And she was like, "Hi," and we're like, "Hi."
So if Calf Fassett had his own studio, that's what it would look like.
Do you think so?
Yeah, for sure. It very, very similar. But I felt so happy there. It was just, the colors were fantastic, and
And you picked up
the white walls, I picked up a couple of things. But the white walls really, the color of the yarn just popped because it just looked so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yes,
and,
that's exactly.
and-
against the white.
and I was just so envious of her. She's got this, she creates the yarns and the fabrics. She does the dyeing, and then she sells it in her store. It's so beautiful. It's so gorgeous.
And also, she's very well located because people that were coming up from the States, from Maine, it's from Maine, right? Mostly? Or not upstate,
Well, all over,
from
yeah,
Maine,
yeah.
But specifically along that route. She's on this route that you have to bypass right past her. So we ran into some Americans who were coming down for the PI festival. Do you
Yeah.
remember?
Yes.
And next thing you know, because we were in Nova Scotia now, and they were as well, they said hello, and next thing they had planned to be at the PI festival, and they found themselves at this shop the
Yes.
same day we were. And we ran into them over and
Several
over again
times
at
that
all
day.
of it, because we went to this different locations like Lunenburg and other places, and there they were, hi, and so they were on the same unofficial tour that we were.
And they actually went to more than we did.
They did. They did. Maybe
But-
they did a little more research,
Maybe.
or,
So
or
I
they
know
had more
this.
time on their hands.
So this one is called Trail Mix, dyed in the wool.
This what? What is it?
Merino worsted, 100% merino yarn. It's beautiful. I was like picking up black yarn because it's.
And this is the natural color of a sheep, is it?
It's 100% merino, so she dyed it. Yeah, yeah, it's really nice, and it's worsted.
Because if you think about it, we talk about black dye in the past, and that used to be a very difficult color to achieve,
Yeah.
this darkness of the black. It's because the natural wools, you think about, a black wool, but it really never as black as black.
Now this one, I was in a green phase. I picked up a lot of green.
That's a
and
beautiful green.
This is gorgeous. It's Blueface Leicester wool, 100% blue
BFL.
BFL, and it's called Fetch.
Fetch. That's very fetching, and it caught your eye.
Well, it's from. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask her if it's from. I think I did ask if it's from Mean Girls. 'Cause
Is that for Mean Girls? What do you mean? Fetching?
that's a fetch.
Well, remember when I told you that story about one time on the subway when I was younger and prettier?
I think it's
This
sorry.
woman-
I think it's either Mean Girls or Legally Blonde. I think it's Mean Girls. I'm not sure.
I don't know, but you should know because you know your Mean Girls. Sometimes, never mind. Anyway, okay, never mind. I was going to tell a story about being fetching, but
Oh, tell her. Go ahead.
I was on the subway. I
I'm
was
all
younger and
ears.
prettier. There was a woman. I was sitting there, and I was having one of those days where I was just feeling blah. Really, just one of those days. Getting on the subway. I was living in Toronto, and I was just feeling gloomy. And this woman comes up to me, and she smiles, and she hands me this card. And so I take the card, and I'm like, and I sat here on the subway. And she was very well-to-do. She was very well put together. She was wearing like one of those, like a businesswoman with like the jacket and the
Yes.
matching skirt. I was going to say a pantsuit, but it was a pants skirt. And she had her briefcase, and it said, she said,
Like Working Girls, like that.
she says, I find you quite fetching. And it's her phone number. And I thought, wow. I thought, seriously?
Okay, hold on. I have a question before you go on with the story. Was it written, or did she have it already pre-written?
Yeah, she had it stacked of them printed up and just handed them out randomly to everybody that she thought was hot. No, she had written a note.
That's
she had
great.
She spotted me on the platform, and she wrote this note at the back of with her and wrote her phone number
Yeah.
on this card. And so I thought, it made me feel very
That's
special.
fantastic.
And then I was looking at her across the way on the subway. She's sitting over there, and I thought, this who has the courage this day to just think like she sees someone, and she thought,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm going to just say, hey, I find you, fetching.
Yeah.
And I thought that was charming, fetching. And so then I did talk to her as she left. As she left the subway, I followed her, the train. We got up at the same stop, just coincidentally, and I followed, and I said, excuse me, and I had to have a word for her because I
Sure.
wanted her to think like, I didn't want her to think like, this day and age, she went out of her way to say, hey, perhaps I was someone she would like to say, hey, and maybe
Yeah.
go for coffee with or something. And I didn't want her to think that, just another guy not calling her or something, because I thought,
Yeah.
so I wanted to explain to her that as attractive and, she looks so sophisticated and very well put together and attractive, and I thought I don't want her to go on off thinking some guy didn't bother with her. And I had to explain to her that I said, I'm sort of already taken. But not so many words, just so that she would go.
Yeah.
I said, thank you so much for that, and she really appreciated it. We had a little chat, and I just wanted her to know that thank you so much for this, because I was having a gloomy day, and she absolutely made my day, and we're still talking about it today, years later.
Yeah.
It was very special. It was very
I think it's fantastic.
special
I think
moment.
that's a fantastic story, and also the fact that she did that, like, good for her. Like that's
what I thought.
yeah.
Because most people, in big cities, people are just boom, boom, boom,
Yes.
you cross
Yeah.
people's paths, subway. But she took that moment to say that, and I want to take the moment to say, just so if she doesn't get the phone call, that she wouldn't go away going,
Well, Toronto also has a reputation of not being the friendliest city in Canada.
That's right. That's right.
So good for you for responding as well.
Fetchy.
Fetch. That's so
Fetch.
That's so fetch. I love it.
But I was thinking, I still got it.
And so,
No, he didn't. Then.
yes, he did.
That was
And
then.
then this one is called Shift. Back to the yarn.
Let's just shift to a different topic. Next
Merino
one.
gradient.
It's called Shift.
Shift, and it's merino gradient. And
Good
it's,
segue.
yes, and so this will be, well, I'll knit up some. There's some nylon in it as well. So it's sock yarn.
You seem
But-
very excited about it.
I know, I'm mesmerized by it. Because
I
it looks
love
like an
this.
eye.
Well, I know. It's almost one of those things where when you look at that, it's one of those. It's almost
I
like
can't
those-
wait to.
It's almost like one of those special effects. It's going like this, that eye going because it draws you in. It's almost the same fetch color in the center.
But the thing is, it is. Oh, it is. But it's
pretty
also
darn
exciting
close.
because you don't know what it's going to look like until you start knitting.
It's going to be magic.
It's going to be magic.
Kind of like
So
when you produce some of your colors, they're just magic.
it's just magic.
It just happens.
So that was amazing. We had a great time, and then we were heading to still on our way to Lunenburg, and we were
I
going.
mean, still on our way to Lunenburg.
We weren't there yet. We stopped here first. Then we
But
stopped.
you didn't mention that we were headed to Lunenburg.
Oh my gosh! I will rewind this tape and I'll show you that we did.
Where was I? I was probably still
You were
thinking about my
thinking-
history.
You're thinking about the woman on the
So we
subway.
stopped here, and then we stopped here. This was early morning.
Yes.
It was our first stop,
And
then
we spent a couple of hours in the
we
store.
were there a long time.
And then we were on our way into Mahone Bay, and we went to a couple of shops in there. There was actually
So we're not even anywhere near Lunenburg.
no, and there was also a yarn shop closing that weekend, but we did not go to that yarn shop because we had to get to Lunenburg at a specific time. But we did go to a store in Mahone Bay, and I picked up some yarn.
Mahone
Oh.
Bay. It wasn't too far off, but where exactly was it? Mahone Bay. What was
On the way
shop?
to Lunenburg.
Yes, I know. I remember Mahone Bay. I do know Mahone Bay, but I don't remember the shop. So remind me.
It is
Remind me.
called. I'm gonna cut this in. It is called Encompassing Design,
Encompassing Design. What
yes.
does it look like?
and it's Christine Little is the owner of the shop.
What
It was
did
really nice. It was a rug hooking shop. We're back to the hookers. Can't spend a
This is
day.
what-
They
you
cannot
said it was
spend
the
a
yarn
day
shop.
away from. No, the yarn shop sold. We didn't go to that one, but there was one that did have yarn in it, and it was a rug hooking shop.
What did it look like?
It had lots of rug hooking stuff in it, and it had yarn. And we had a chat with the owner.
That's like a dozens and dozens of places we've been in the past.
Yeah,
So we come up to Mahone Bay.
yeah.
I have no visual.
Okay, well,
What
this-
did it look like? We came up to a building.
do you remember Mahone Bay at all?
No.
Yeah, so we went in and we parked our car,
Very good.
and there was
That's
a
fine.
and there was
It's
a
not just for
bay.
me.
There was a bay, and there was all kinds of houses. I mean, the main street had all kinds of shops, and one of them I sat in a boat, and I was knitting, or I sat in something, and I was knitting in front of the post office.
Okay. Okay. See, that's all you had to say.
Bring it back to that.
I can picture the bay because we came around and those shops were closed because we wanted to go right there. But we came right upon the bay and the town was across the bay, correct? Right here?
Yes,
Right across
yes,
the bay
yeah.
with churches.
Yeah.
And then you had to go around
Yeah.
into the town.
Yes.
And that was Mahone Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming back to me because I just need one visual. And yes, you sat in a canoe with the characters in front of the post office. I don't know I think it was a fox and
Yeah.
there was a moose, and yes, Mahone Bay.
Oh my God, we're back to Moose Knuckles again. That was last episode.
But
Anyway, so back to the story. You're all red.
I'm all over the board now.
We're back to the store, and the store was great. It had some yarn in it, and it had a local dyer.
And it was a
the-
tiny little shop, and she mentioned that her son dyed yarn.
Oh my
Am I
gosh,
right?
I do remember. Yes, Shane. Shane, the son, dyes the yarn.
I remember the
And
shop is like Shane.
He did a great job. We did not meet Shane.
We didn't meet Shane, but just the name alone and the color, he was mesmerized. Like, I need to meet Shane.
Although I did some research and did find Shane, and it's unfortunate we did not meet Shane. Let's just say that.
I'm sure his mother would like that. And like that little tidbit of information.
No, he looks
what's
like a nice
great?
guy. That's what I'm saying.
But what's great is we just, like you said, we went there and we come across this shop, and what are the chances that her son, and he started dyeing yarn, and so she was showing us there wasn't that much left at the time, but what are the chances that her son is a dyer?
He's not just a dyer. they also wrote a book together. They wrote several books together, and the last one is "Die Me to the Moon." And so I will put a link on that as well. So they have. So he does.
Die me to the moon.
So he's a great dyer, and it's a great combination.
Play among the stars.
And so the two. What a great project for a mother and a son. It's fantastic.
It's wonderful.
So that's the latest book is "Die Me to the Moon."
I'm just getting a kick about because it's like, tie me to the moon.
Yes.
Yes, I get it.
Okay. So then, we had great coffee there as well. Or I didn't drink coffee, but you had coffee, and I had, I think I had a matcha latte.
Oh, yeah.
That was really good.
Because sometimes, it seems like, sometimes you're looking for a coffee and you can't find one, and then you have these quaint little villages, and there's always one artisanal coffee shop. And did we have a pastry there too? Because I remember we walked in, and when I go into a new place, I'm always very perky and friendly, and I say hello and I talk. And
you do, and that's before you have the coffee.
The poor little guy, and they're just kind of like, hi. They're used to, hi, how are you today? And I'm like, whoa. And they're like, and it was just very quaint because I like meeting people, and I love that there was this fantastic coffee shop and a bake shop right there in the little village. Yeah.
So right after Mahone Bay, we were on our way to Lunenburg, a World UNESCO Heritage Site.
And the reason for that designation is because it is one of the rarest and most well-preserved colonial villages. The Old Town Lunenburg, which is a British settlement, planned settlement, and it's the traditional, as many settlements in North America by British colonies. It's on a rectangular grid formation plan, which means all of the streets run, north, south, east, west on a grid, right? And what's more remarkable about Old Town Lunenburg is that a lot of the surviving architecture and buildings, the colonial wooden houses, this was established in 1753, so it's been unchanged for over 250 years, and that includes the official plan, the streetscapes, the buildings, and the landscape, because it was very, very hilly, so it was very rare with the topography to have this sort of a grid. So you have these incredible hills and valleys all within this grid, and all facing the waterfront. So the vast Lunenburg waterfront. And what's incredibly beautiful is the historic architecture and the colors and the historical uses and functions of many of these buildings survive to this day, and they're still used as they were 250 years ago,
and
all from the 1700s.
Yeah.
And all of the colors is because it was a fishing village, but also a very important large coast fishing village. A lot of the paints they used on their boats, just for the maintenance of their boats, a lot of the leftover color paints they used to then paint some of the houses and buildings. That's why it's just so random and colorful and just all
beautiful.
over the board. It's beautiful and stunning.
Yeah, and just about the grid that was made, that was planned overseas, so they didn't actually look at the land when they were planning it out, and so they didn't factor in the hills. So,
that's right.
So that's why you've got some hills that are like this. I would not want to be driving down some of those hills in the wintertime. That would be tough.
Absolutely. Even it's funny because even when we found ourselves walking up to that one beautiful building that you'll see, and I remember you're literally walking and you felt like you're leaning forward. It was so steep. You're going up and you're on an angle like this, just going up, and and a couple of times we even bypassed that really one steep hill. Do you remember when we backtracked and came back? We said, why don't we go one street before? Because it was sort of like one hill was a lot steeper than the other. But all that's going north, south. Well, you imagine the waterfront. But you're right. If they just thought, looking at a landscape, they were just going to do their grid, but they just plopped it there. But the landscape goes from up above and it just grades down towards the waterfront. Which some of the history, when we went into that historical house building that had a bit of a museum there, and it actually had a model of the grid and the old town, and you could see the hills and valleys. And they also mentioned, like, not thinking about in the old days when there was sewage and what have you, and it rained and they plotted their gardens and what have you. Well, of course, the homes below, the ones above, everything. Yeah, it would have been a little bit messy at the time, but
you'd think you'd want waterfront property, but not then, because
everything would run down.
And the other thing is, you were first to be attacked when
Oh,
the ships
that's
came
right.
in.
That's right. If you're at the base, but most of them were set up onto the hills
Yeah.
up here, and that's why it's also hard to believe that all of these buildings have survived, and it's just incredible just to walk through these streets, and it's beautiful.
It is a beautiful, beautiful town. Absolutely stunning.
And they have the warehouses and on the wharfs down
Yes.
the waterfront that are historical. Everything's historical about it. And we had that wonderful meal on one of the decks overlooking the waterfront.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
Yes.
And the old school we went into, that was beautiful
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, that building, the fact that survived as well, and they think about it, what was the number one reason for devastation and these towns not surviving? It was everything built of wood. You think of, great fires, and all major cities had great fires at the turn of the century or way back when. Even you think of European towns, everything built in wood, till they discovered different ways of doing it, because that would have been the number one, detriment of having wooden
Yep.
structures. So the surviving example is the reason for UNESCO World Heritage Site.
And they happen to have a yarn shop there.
They just happen to have another. Oh, I want to mention one. Oh, I forgot to mention one little important thing about Nova Scotia, because we're talking about the waterfront. When I mentioned a little tidbit of information, because now you're mentioning a yarn shop, well, there's a little tidbit of a sheep story in that history with Samuel de Champlain. So,
He made it to Lunenburg as well?
Not exactly. Well, he could have been in that area because he went all along looking. He went all along, and
he's a busy guy.
Annapolis Royale is not far from Lunenburg.
Yeah.
And it's not a huge still when he went up and down the coast. Well, they stopped in a little town called Port du Rossignol. A rossignol is a bird. It's Port of the Nightingale. A bird. Nightingale. So they were, when they're looking to establish the colony, they did a pit stop there. And as they were disembarking from the ships, a sheep let loose and fell overboard. So they called that little area Port au Mouton, which is the port of the sheep. And to this day, so Port au Rossignol is now, because it's British, all the French names, they sort of disappeared. That became Liverpool. So just near Liverpool, there's still a little town called Port au Mouton, which is where the sheep.
Oh, wow.
So when we talk about the history of sheep in Canada,
what year was that?
This is 1605. 1606. So this is when we're talking about the first sheep arriving in Canada. Well, the French brought the sheep, and
like a Cheviot, like it was
exactly
a Cheviot-like.
A Cheviot-like sheep. But this is when we're looking for history of sheep, we wouldn't even find that information. But
that's a great.
I just happened to come across this little tidbit in this paper of this Britannica, whatever paper about Nova Scotia, and there was that little information about stopping in Port au Mouton where a sheep fell overboard. Wow. And here we know that the sheep were brought over during that time.
Yeah, out of all the research I've done on sheep in Canada, I've never happened upon that story. That's fantastic.
Port au Mouton.
That is fantastic. Thank you for enriching my life.
So that's why there's a yarn shop in Lunenburg.
That's
all
right.
Because of that one sheep that fell overboard nearby.
And the shop is called the Mariner's Daughter, and it's mother-daughter owned. But I think the whole family participates in it, and it's a beautiful yarn shop. It's really nice. We're in beautiful Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, and we are just outside the Mariner's Daughter's yarn shop. I'm really excited to go in here, so let's go. Come on.
Halsey. I am part owner with my mother of the Mariner's Daughter here in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia.
It is beautiful. This is a great shop.
Thank you.
Really nice. Can you tell us a little bit about your wool and how it's organized and where it comes from?
Well, that's a long story, but I'll try and keep it short. We are big believers in natural fibers, so almost everything in the shop is a natural fiber.
Very nice.
With the exception, of course, of a little bit of nylon in our sock yarn.
Sure. Yep.
And we source our yarn from all over the world. We're really looking for special brands that have good practices and really great quality yarns. Fun colors, good quality, just the special stuff.
That's wonderful. Who designs the store? How did that come? Is it a collaboration or is it?
It is. My mother and I spent a lot of time on it. We kind of modeled it a little bit after a greengrocer.
Yes.
And
Yep.
just because you have the nice displays of
Yes.
beautiful color like you would at a farmer's market or something like that.
You definitely get that feel.
Yeah, and it's also just our style, really. It's
Yep.
like kind of an eclectic, sort of reused. We like wood and basketry and that sort of thing. So
Excellent.
we incorporated that.
So in terms of local dyeing, do you have any local dyers here or do you have any samples?
Yeah. We have lots of local dyers actually.
Okay.
We have a couple of them at the moment. We're running low because it's nearing the end of the summer season when we've had everybody come through looking for local products. But we have some Woolly Dare. She's a local lady who hand dyes. She hand dyed both of these and then she hand spun this one. So you can see it's dyed in the fleece.
Yeah.
And that's her hat kit. We have local yarn from the Hat Junkie. She is a wonderful milliner, but also a prolific knitter, and she dyes with natural dyes.
Beautiful.
And then we have Botanical Fibers, who has lovely, beautiful, naturally dyed yarns as well.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah. She has other yarns too, but we're sold out of those.
And then, do you have any kits?
Yes, we do. So we carry our own designs in kits. We have the All Eyes on You Cal, which is this beautiful kit here.
Mhm.
That's a merino, yak, alpaca, and silk combination of
Very
yarn.
nice.
Yeah,
And who designed this?
I did.
Oh, fantastic.
We also have the Everybody Loves This hat in the deluxe edition, which is
Oh, that's nice.
beautiful Illimani baby llama combined with silk mohair from Knitting for Olive. Makes a really soft,
That
stretchy
is
cap.
beautiful.
Yeah, that's also my design. And then
Oh,
my
wow.
mother designed this tiara shawl, which we named after the earth tones of the Eco Llama yarn that's used in it. Also an Illimani yarn.
Wow.
Also paired with mohair.
That's gorgeous. That's really nice.
Yeah. That
Oh,
one.
it
And
feels
then I
beautiful.
guess we also have the kiss shawl, which is here. Run out of bust to display everything on. And this is a Keep It Simple scarf. So it looks intricate, but it's actually really simple to knit, which is one of the things that we really like. Is that you
Yeah.
have fun knitting,
Yes.
so you relax while you're doing it, but
Absolutely.
you come out with a beautiful, intricate item.
That's really nice as well.
Yeah.
And what is this? What is
This
the wool?
is the baby llama from
Oh,
Illimani.
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Beautiful.
4 colors. We have it in
Oh,
other
wow.
shades too. This is the original.
Super. And who designed this?
My mother.
Your mother.
Yeah, my mother. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
That's fantastic. And so what are you selling most of?
Oh gosh, we sell all kinds of things. The kits have been very popular,
Yes.
especially with people who are traveling, because you can't leave home without your knitting.
True. Yep,
You
absolutely.
need your knitting. But sock yarn, of course, is very popular. We just got this in from Ushitita in the
Mhm.
Netherlands. And yeah, I find everybody's knitting everything these
Yeah.
days. It's great.
That's fantastic. And one thing that caught my eye when I walked in was the puffin with the socks.
Oh yes, he's adorable.
And who designed that?
That's my sister in New Wolsey. She started making the cards and then recently put the puffin on a bag.
What a talented family.
Yes.
So if people want to find you online, where would they look?
TheMarinersDaughter.ca.
Awesome. And do you have so it's on Instagram as
We
well?
have Instagram, Facebook as well. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Jamie, for filming.
Thank you.
It was on my bucket list. I've heard a lot about this yarn shop and was really excited to attend.
And she was so wonderful. She was such a wonderful host. And I loved it because it was in one of those old wooden structures, like would have been a former home at one point. So quaint and beautiful. Come up the stairs into this beautiful, rustic, beautiful space. And again, that just very homey wooden architecture and all kinds of things to look at.
Yeah.
Yarn.
So I purchased something, shockingly, and it's already a fob, a finished object.
Finished object.
Yeah,
It is.
I was knitted for my daughter for her birthday. I've asked her to send me a photo, a selfie, so I can share it. I was not going to give it to her until after we finished this filming, but then her birthday came, so I thought I better give it to her now. So she said she'll give me a selfie of it. But it is baby llama and mohair, and it is beautiful. It's so soft.
It's baby llama?
Yeah, it's really nice.
Oh.
Baby llama, right there.
I know that it was soft.
It was
the
gorgeous.
color was
and then I bought a
gorgeous.
pom-pom for it as well. Recycled fur.
It turned out beautifully.
Yeah, really, really nice. And so that was one of the kits that they were selling.
Yes.
From Local Design. And then one of the sisters is an artist. And so she made all these really cool cards.
Beautiful artwork.
Yeah.
All of these?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
And these are the
Yeah.
same. That one's the same.
Yeah, they're absolutely stunning. And the puffin, if people don't know puffin, that's very East Coast.
Yep.
Puffin bird, nautical bird, is that what you call it? Seaside bird. They perch and nest on the rocky outcroppings by the ocean. The puffin, they're very cute. They're black and white with a very bright orange beak. And she did the bags, and she designed their cards, their business cards, and logos. And
really nice.
Beautiful artwork.
So highly recommend visiting that yarn shop.
The Mariner's Daughter.
And so while we were in the Mariner's Daughter, we were told that we have to go and see the Hat Junkie. We have to go visit. Go visit Anna, the Hat Junkie.
She did say that, and she said it's just up the hill.
Yes.
One of the hills.
And Anna is not only is a milliner who has clients all over the world, she is also a natural dyer. And I think that was so we walked up a couple of streets up and found her. And
we had to, it's kind of interesting because it's so simple to find it. It should have been just straightforward because it was up and across from that great big beautiful school building structure, and it should have just been down, and it should have been so simple because it's a grid. But if you take one street before, there's that beautiful historic church, one street, next street. So if you're just going in squares like this, it took us a bit. We found it, no problem.
We found it. And
Hello, welcome.
Anna.
What a treat to have you guys here.
What a treat to be here. This is gorgeous.
Thank you.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And so tell us a little bit about who you are and the name of your shop.
Okay, I'm Anna Chu, the Hat Junkie.
The Hat Junkie.
Yeah, I have been making hats for almost 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 28 years.
Jeez. So you started when you were 5.
Yes, exactly. It was just a wee one at my mother's knee.
Have you always been here?
No, I am very originally from Montreal, then moved to Toronto when I was about 9. When I was 20, I took off to New York to be a dancer and spent 20 years in the States, picked up a husband and a kid. 2 husbands, actually, but I only kept one. and 14 years ago, we moved to Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, so we love it here.
Beautiful.
And, we're here to stay.
And this is your studio as well?
This is my studio and my
fantastic.
home.
Wow.
And these are my hats.
So you can tell me a little bit about how did you learn how to be a milliner?
I am self-taught,
Oh,
but
wow.
over 28 years.
Yeah.
So I was pretty bad when I started. And you just keep picking up one skill and one skill and one skill until suddenly you discover you kind of know what you're doing. But I always like to keep shifting what I do. I mean, more growing, I should say. Yeah.
And do you work with wool?
I love wool. That's about my favorite material. 4 years ago, so I don't mind saying I'm 54. So at 50, I started knitting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, which
Good for you. That's fantastic.
I
That's
always
great.
wanted to, but I was afraid that I would become so distracted that I wouldn't be able to do my work.
Sure.
And that's actually
Yes.
exactly
Oh
what
my gosh.
happened. Is totally what happened. I just like fell head over heels in love with knitting to the point where I wasn't actually working. And so over time, I have found a way to incorporate knitting into my hats. So
That's fantastic.
yeah, so if you look like at these hats over here, these are, first I hand knit them and then I felt them. And then I do wet felted flowers. So, and I use all Canadian wool, and I incorporate a lot of natural dyeing. So you've got cochineal and madder root, and there's goldenrod in there.
And so when you say you incorporate natural dyeing,
Mm-hmm.
where does that come from? Do you are you the dyer?
I'm the dyer, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah,
I knew there was a kinship.
Yes, yeah, totally. No, I actually have learned so much of my dyeing from you. I'm like,
geez.
oh, look at that.
You're making me blush.
Like rhubarb for Mordant, I had no idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, these are so great. So,
Thank you.
what are some of your favorites?
Well, I mean, my favorites are always my latest.
Yes.
But, yeah, so this one's actually one of my favorite hats. I'll put it on for you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, very
So,
nice.
I
That's-
tend to
that's
design for Canadian winters.
Yes.
So it's super thick. It's Canadian wool. Like, it's very important to me to use as much local
Sure.
materials as possible. I can't always do that, but I try.
Yep.
Yeah, so it just, because of the thickness of the fabric, and it's got a little stretch to it, it's just super, super warm.
Oh,
and,
nice.
and wool is the
Yeah, it's
miracle,
fantastic. Yeah.
miracle fiber. So let's
Very
see,
nice.
what else can I show you? This one over here is, I just
Oh,
finished that this
great.
morning. And that one is, the fabric is hand woven here in
Mhm.
Lunenburg by Double Whale Hand Woven. So if anybody wants to look up her Double Whale Hand Woven,
Yeah.
her work is beautiful. She has beautiful coats and blankets. And
Yeah, that's gorgeous. That's
yeah,
really
so actually
nice.
I had her, she
Oh,
specially
that's-
wove these fabrics for me.
Very nice.
And then lately I've been felting them a little bit. So
Yep.
just shrinking them to make them a little bit tighter.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah. Let's see, that's another one from the Double Whale Hand Wovens. So,
Oh, that's nice too.
yeah.
I like the color. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's really fun. We just
Yeah.
sat down with her and put little pieces of wool together to create the fabric.
Very nice.
Yeah.
It's nice when you can collaborate with someone
Yeah,
so close
I
as well
love
and
it.
as talented.
Yes, yeah. And then these are, this one's a small one, but actually here's one I dyed. I dyed this one with madder root.
Oh, yeah.
So these are just cotton canvases that I dye. And
Very nice.
yeah, nice kind of all season hat.
And where do you get your inspiration?
Oh,
Like to come up with something like this, for example, or that, or that, or that.
yeah, like these
I
are
love
like
these.
different periods of my life, kind of. I mean, I go through phases. So these were my dangling flower period,
Yes.
where I don't know, I just always wanted a flower
Yep.
like dangling. I did a huge series. I have like a brochure, and you can see a bunch of them in there. Yeah, I just really, let's see, actually this one, I'll show you this one after. I sometimes think of like, this one is a little wacky. This one was like a fiesta hat to me. I think
Okay.
I just,
Yep.
maybe I saw a plate or something. There's the colors.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, like
Instagram-
fiesta wear. Is that
yeah,
what you're saying?
fiesta wear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, inspiration's everywhere these days.
Yes.
You know, it could
Yep.
just be a picture or a walk or, yeah. But so this one's like the more serious, the more serious version of that hat. So it's like almost a classic cloche, except it happens to have a flower coming out of the
Awesome.
center of your head.
And I love the green that you've incorporated in there
Oh,
as well.
thank you.
All the way around. That's really nice.
Thank you. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. And then, yeah, these guys are
organic cotton and hemp.
Oh wow.
And I dye them too. So
Jeez.
I like to make everything as hard as possible.
Well, and it sounds like you're really busy. You're doing all of these things. You're dyeing your own stuff.
Yeah.
Then you're thinking about creating hats, and then you're making the hats.
Well, you know what it's like, right? It's just like once you get attached to the slow process,
Sure.
it's hard to go back because it's so fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, these are so nice.
Yeah, like once you know how to draw color out of plants, like it's hard to go back.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
It's fun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, how did you get into? What made you? I guess trend towards the natural dyeing. What was that all about?
I'm just fascinated. You know, it's just learning.
Sure.
Learning, and I love. You know, I love natural fibers. I'm interested in, you know, what happens to the hats after their life is over.
Yes.
You know, like actually I used to make a lot of polar fleece hats, which I still will do, you know, when people ask me, but I've really been moving away from that, you know, because of microplastics in the ocean, right?
Yeah.
And so more and more, like once you start to tune into what's happening environmentally, you just want to be you want to be doing the right thing. So so the natural fibers is part of that, and then the natural dyeing became an extension of that, of just like, okay, you know, but everything has a price, and I don't like diss anything, because everything, you know, we walk on the earth, we have an impact, and you try to walk gently. So I'm not against anything, but I try as hard as possible to just be as good as possible.
And who are your customers?
My customers, actually have customers all over the world. It's partly what happens when you've been doing something for this long, is you just keep collecting people. So, you know, really I get a lot. This season was wonderful. I think people were just desperate to actually meet one-on-one with people and touch things. So I had a lot of people coming in here. We got a lot of tourists in Lunenburg, but I do quite a large online business. So just women from all over, you know.
That's fantastic. And I noticed your pamphlet.
Yes.
This is a fantastic shot.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, there's the Lunenburg Academy. That's my friend Beatrice Schuler is the photographer.
Yeah, I saw that in the Mariner's Daughter.
Yes. Yeah.
And really, it stood out. It's
Right,
great.
that
It's
was
really good.
that was avocado dyed shawl that I made. Those were like one of the first things I ever knit was those leg warmers. I think.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they remember I walked in and I was like, I want to make leg warmers.
Oh, that's so great. So, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they reach you?
Yeah, well, you can email me at anna@hatjunkie.com. You could just go to my website, hatjunkie.com, HATJUNKIE. If you want to get my blog, which I send out, I say once a month, but it's been a few months. It's right there on my homepage. You can just sign up and I'll send my blog out to you.
And are you on Instagram and Facebook?
I'm on Instagram at the Hat Junkie.
Okay.
Yeah, and same on Facebook at the Hat Junkie.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you gotta put the in there. Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I love this. This is fantastic.
Well, thank you.
I'm so happy we were able to reach you and get here. And Jamie, thank you for filming.
Thanks, Jamie.
Well, that was great. The next morning we got up and we had to leave our little oasis, the beautiful little fishing hut on the water
In Hubbard's.
in Hubbard's, Nova Scotia, and head towards the Annapolis Valley, which I've heard is stunning. I've never been there before.
And we should mention our hosts when we left Hubbard's, because they were
Oh my
so
gosh.
good and kind.
The best.
They were
hosts
so
ever.
wonderful, and they were so happy to just have us there. And they greeted us, and they parked a trailer for us, because remember we hauled that trailer all across the East Coast. And they said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." And they backed it in up this hill. I tried, and they said, "We'll take care of it. Leave it here. It'll be fine." And then they were just wonderful, wonderful hosts, and happy to have us.
Yeah, and then just the other little tidbit, when we were chatting with them the night we arrived, I remember the husband grabbed his wife and Darren made her laugh, and I just thought, oh my gosh,
they were so just
what a great couple.
They just loved where they
Yeah.
were, and they were so happy and pleased with them because they, like I said, they had that place for so long, and they finally just made it into this. It was very recent that they just had it on Airbnb, and so they were really happy to welcome people. And from as far away as we came, they were so happy to have us there, and they were very accommodating and wonderful.
Well, and you could feel the love. Like
Between the two, they were so.
So we were heading away from the water this time and towards the Bay of Fundy on over to the Annapolis Valley to Gaspereau Valley Fibres. That was our main mission that day. We had two objectives. One, to make sure we get there to the store, the wool shop, and the second was to check into our place on the Bay of Fundy. So we get to Wolfville,
yes.
which is the hometown to Acadia University, which is one of the oldest liberal arts universities in Canada. It goes back to around 1863, around that time. And it's you can feel Wolfville is definitely a university town.
Well, it was fascinating because again, it seems like in the middle of nowhere, and there were all these students everywhere, and it was a beautiful warm day. Remember, it still had some beautiful warm weather. You could wear shorts; it was that warm. And then you just had these young people everywhere. It was very vibrant and just alive. The little cafes and shops, because we were looking for lunch when we arrived as well. So that was Wolfville and.
Why are the students getting younger every year?
They look like they're 12, unless they're just
Does that mean we're getting older?
They're smart kids.
I'm sure it's just they're smarter and they're getting in younger.
They're getting into university at 12. I saw them. I saw them all over the
Well, we
street.
chatted with a few of them.
We did. They were wonderful.
So we made it to Gaspereau Valley Fibres, and the Annapolis Valley is stunning. And I'm a water guy. Like, I love the ocean. I love being on water. However, Annapolis Valley, I sat there and I kept thinking to myself, if I were to live in either place, would I live in the water or would I live in Annapolis Valley? It's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Well, do you remember we took a little bit of a wrong turn, but we didn't realize we had taken a wrong turn.
Yeah, and I'm glad we did.
I think we were supposed to do right, and then we made a left, and so, which took us a roundabout way, but we didn't realize that we were gradually going up a slight hill. And it wasn't until we got to the very top and then we had to wind our way down, we came around a bend and there was this glorious landscape that
beautiful
you'll see, or you've seen, and we had to stop. It was breathtaking.
The land kind of reminded me of Napa in California a little bit, but it was absolutely stunning.
You mentioned that at the time.
Yeah. So we finally found our way to Gaspereau Valley Fibres, and I've heard about this place from so many people. It is known as a phenomenal knitting hub. I wouldn't say just store, like it's a farm. If they bring in
they raise
phenomenal knitters to teach classes, like this is a whole.
They have amazing
knitting
workshops.
Hub. Yeah. Yes. And fantastic sheep as well.
Because all over Nova Scotia and the East Coast, there's sheep everywhere.
Yeah. And
so this is one of the bigger sort of, like, they raise their sheep, they produce wool, they have workshops. It's a hub of activity.
Yeah.
And a beautiful setting with the beautiful historic building that the shop is in is absolutely stunning.
And it is one of the nicest yarn shops in Canada.
The setting is incredible. The building is incredible, and the setup, and it just feels like it was. I don't know what the incarnations of it were, but at one time it was a garage. But inside, it's just looks so historic with the wooden beams. It's all wood beam, historical. It almost seems like it could have been a woolen mill at one time, and now it's like it's the woolen store. Yeah. But it almost seems like there's the woolen mill attached to it. But they have the sheep right outside, and absolutely gorgeous. And we met our host, the owner.
Who couldn't be in the store for the interview.
But we chatted with her from the veranda,
which was
at a distance, in front of her beautiful historic home.
Yes,
just there down the laneway from the shop.
And we picked up some yarn. She was nice.
She was fascinating. We had a great conversation. She had so much to talk about the area and the history of how she landed there, and it was fascinating.
We're in the beautiful Gaspereau Valley in Nova Scotia, and we're at Gaspereau Valley Fibres. I've heard so much about this place, and I'm dying to go in and see it. So let's go. close your eyes and feel that and tell me what breed it is.
Well, I already know what it is.
Oh.
But it's soft and it's very soft and it's very, what do you call that? It's rustic and soft all at the same time, but I feel the fuzziness.
Okay, hold on a second.
Does it have a halo? Because I feel the fuzziness.
Before you answer, keep your eyes closed. Okay, so because you already know the breed, what color are you touching?
Oh, that's the dark and that's the light, because I remember the darker one was slimmer than the natural cream.
Okay, so what is it?
Cotswold.
And what do we know about Cotswold?
Well, I'm okay. I'm almost sure I'm going to have to go. I'm not going to be able to go in depth.
Check our notes
at the moment because I don't believe. I'm not sure if we covered Cotswold or not, but it's a very, very old breed of British sheep.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to it was one of the prized in the Middle Ages. It was a very sought after prized sheep, both for its fiber and its meat. So it's been around for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
That I could tell you about Cotswold.
And so this is basically, these are undyed. So I wanted undyed.
I love
so
there's something about natural fibers, natural colors. You can do so much and be so creative with all the colors.
And a sweater. This would be amazing in a sweater. And you actually tried a sweater on when you were there. Yeah.
I almost walked out of the shop by accident, still wearing that.
Yeah. So we had a great time at that yarn shop.
It just fit me perfectly.
Yeah.
It's just for display though.
And then after we left that, we went into the town of Woolsville again. They've got a shop in the town as well.
Well, did they mention for us to pop in?
Yes, they did.
That's what they did.
So we popped in there and then said hello and hung out for a little bit.
The owner wasn't there, but there was a lovely young lady who she was so excited. She's what
she made our day.
Well, she's what the next generation is all about because she's young and she's just so excited and she loves knitting. She's all about yarn and knitting. She knew so much and she looked like she was all of 20 and she was so excited to be working in that wool shop. But she knew a lot and she was one of those very eager, loves to knit. So it was very, very lovely.
It was great. Her. Yeah. So the Nova Scotia was
her a little something because I said we need to leave her a little something because she's for the love of knit. We left her a little something that she could knit something up with. Since we had a little bit left over from PI for some reason.
So that was our trip to Nova Scotia. It was absolutely stunning, and we had a great time.
In a nutshell, but yes, absolutely incredibly beautiful, wonderful people we met along the way, made some new friends, and we absolutely would go back. So thank you, Nova Scotia.
Go back. We might have even lived there. It's absolutely beautiful. I think I said that about
just get some sheep and live happily ever after.
I said the same thing about Prince Edward Island as well. But they're just so beautiful. It's the people. The people are fantastic, and as you say, the landscape is stunning, and just everything that they have to offer.
Everything seemed like there was art and culture and sheep and wool and more sheep. And
speaking of sheep, somebody needs a haircut. Zan, come here.
Someone's been keeping your feet warm the whole time.
Somebody needs a haircut. Come here.
He's right here.
Zan. Come here.
So, my friends, mes amis, when we head to New Brunswick, it was very français. So, till our next adventure, à la prochaine, mes amis.
Thank you so much for watching, and take care, and we will see you on our trip to New Brunswick. Bye-bye.
So, oh my gosh. I can see some Canadian classics, something going on here.
What do you think it is?
Well, I know what it is. It looks like donuts.
I know, it's donuts with bacon and maple bacon donuts.
Which are classic Canadian, and newer. And the only reason we brought it up is because, we mentioned those commercials they make about the donut shops in Lunenburg.
Yeah.
So we thought it would be, I have never had a bacon maple donut before. And because I just think bacon on donuts, I don't know. What do you think? Donuts. I didn't make these, but I can, and I could if I wanted to. No, I don't like it. Well, okay. It's very odd. You could really taste the maple, and then you could really taste the bacon.
Yeah, it's a very odd taste.
And then you could really taste the chocolate. Do they go together?
I don't know. The verdict's out on this. I know it's their best seller, but I'm not.
They say they sell out of these all the time, but
yeah.
I think I would rather go like this and take the bacon off.
Yeah.
And then if I wanted bacon, I'd
you could put this in your Caesar salad.
I think if I did that and then just enjoyed the chocolate bacon.
So you can put that in your Caesar
The chocolate bacon. Oh, not the chocolate maple. Mmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That works.
See.
That works.
Now that is absolutely delicious.
Yep.